Hello, Jeff Sauer here, and we're going to be starting our second video in our series talking about how do you create content upgrades, increase your conversion rate, and doing a live case study on the entire topic. Today, we're going to be talking about how do you create and deploy these content upgrades. We're going to be talking about a few tools like Lead Pages, Photoshop, Microsoft Word, Adobe Acrobat, Google Analytics, even ActiveCampaign, and probably sneak in a few other ones in there as well. And so this is me, Jeff. I'm going to be talking all along. I'm going to tuck myself into the corner here. So our last video, we talked about how do we get more leads. Yay, we got more leads. We figured out how to do it. We showed an example of how I got 25% conversion rates from organic search, which is pretty darn cool. And now I want to implement that for more content and do a better job at being consistent here and upgrading the value of all the organic search traffic that I'm getting on my website. So we're going to take one of these and do a live case study for how do we create a content upgrade. So we introduced this concept called a content upgrade, or you might have heard it as a lead magnet or an opt-in bribe. I don't really care what you call it whatever you want to. I'm going to choose probably content upgrade, even though you might hear me using them interchangeably, but I use content upgrade because it's really what I'm trying to do here is you're already seeing my content and then here's an upgraded version of it. And that version is worthy of you giving me your email address. So we looked at my Google Analytics report and we saw that there's some poor performing content. And when I say poor performing, it doesn't mean that there's not good things coming out of it. I'm getting a lot of people coming to my website, a lot of people being introduced to my brand, all these good things that are happening here. But when you look at the page value, especially for this first page here, the 8 steps to eliminating bad data from Google Analytics, the page value is 2 cents. And 2 cents is not nearly as good as if you look at number 8 down there, the monthly report presentation template, which has a value of $2.58. And so we'll dissect exactly why one's doing better than the other. We'll look at those pages in a live web browser, share some ideas there. But I want to show you the process I went through to make that number 8 down there a very valuable page. In our last video, we showed exactly why this report did so well. And it's basically because right at the beginning, there's a download button. So you can download it. And then the download itself matches very closely to what the person's looking for. So if they're looking for a monthly report template, we let them download it. We don't get in the way there. And this technique does give me a 25% conversion rate from organic search traffic. It's consistent. I just took the screenshot today, which is 2 weeks after I recorded the last video. And as you can see here, it's still doing really well. So I'm pretty impressed with the results here. And I'm guessing you probably are too. So just seeing how these things keep on rolling, and it's pretty fun to watch. Okay, so how do you do this for yourself? How the heck do we create content worth downloading? Well, first of all, you might want to establish what your objectives are. So the first objective is that somebody, the user, whoever downloads it, finds enough value to give you their email address. So if you're saying, give me your email address for this content, they have to find it more valuable or valuable enough to do that. And then the user needs to receive that value. So they need to receive what they expect from that download. You can't just say, hey, this is going to be really great, and then not deliver on it. You do need to deliver on it as well. The user gives you a real email address because they think that it's going to be that important and they want to receive this thing. So instead of giving like a bob@bob.com or test@test.com, that type of thing, you get a real email address. That's where your value proposition comes in because it's valuable enough to give you the email address. And then you're trying to create a long-term relationship with this user. So both in the content itself that they're downloading, in the value in it, showing your logo on there, different branding techniques, that type of stuff, as well as creating the opportunity to email them and send them follow-up emails. Other objectives we want from our downloadable content is we're going to be able to decrease our bounce rate from organic search traffic. My bounce rate in many cases is 90%, which means that 9 out of 10 people will just leave after viewing that article. And for those areas that I have content upgrades, it goes down significantly. Because seriously, if you are getting a lot of organic search traffic and you're not having them take another step, if they're just bounced visits, you're wasting your resources, you're wasting your time, and you're wasting their time as well. Even if you spend a lot of time in your content, if they're not doing anything else, then what's the point? When you have somebody print out the guide, it puts your brand into their physical world. I remember when I was working at my agency, we would find these guides online, these PDFs, and we'd print them out, and we'd not only just put it on our own cubicle wall, but we'd give it to other people. And so sometimes content marketing efforts would be seen by, we're talking 50 plus people at a time, and it would be printed out by 10 different people. So talk about the branding impact of creating something that's downloadable. Do you think that somebody's gonna take your blog post and download it and put it on their cube walls? Probably not. So this is where the format of something like a PDF, which I'll show you how we create in a little bit here, that's where it can become so valuable. And then it gives you that positive brand association for years to come. If there's a positive brand association with your content, think about how good that's going to be for not this year, but next year and then well into the future. So you're creating a long-term investment by giving somebody a downloadable piece of content. But before we get into creating this thing, I just wanted to share the cold hard reality of this. So it's really hard to create free, downloadable, good content. And I personally hate it. I sort of hate doing this, but it's necessary. And it often takes longer than the post itself to create it. That's sort of why I hate it, because not only am I dealing with the content itself, creating the content, but then the formatting and making sure everything works in the formatting choice that I use, and dealing with PDFs and Photoshop and all these other tools. It can be a pain. But obviously we're going to walk through that, and I'm going to show you how you can make it a little bit less painful for yourself. But this is important. Obviously, this is important. That's why I'm doing a video on it, and that's why I've found the results to be as good as they are, because not many people are doing this, offering this type of content within their posts. So let me show you how I did it and the tools that I use. The first step is I use Google Analytics, and we'll go in there for a second here, but you can just see from the screenshot how we were able to decide which one we're going to focus on. So for today's video, we are going to take the 8 steps to eliminating data, and we're going to offer a content upgrade for that particular piece of content. So instead of having a 2-cent page value, we're going to check in on this thing in a couple of weeks and see how we're doing, and hopefully that should be up there much higher than what we have right now. Second step is we're going to brainstorm some content upgrades. So here's some ideas for how you can brainstorm your content. You can provide a high-level guide to your topic, whatever your topic is. So if you're talking about a specific thing with a platform, if I was talking specifically about a technique in Google Analytics, I might provide a high-level guide about analytics in general, and that's actually what we're going to be doing here. You can actually make it as simple, and WordPress has plugins that do this, where you can just make a PDF version of the page they are on right now. So if somebody's on your site right now, you can just create an automatic PDF where they can download the PDF version of that content, so they can print it out and share it with people in their organization. You can create a guide that's complementary to your content. So if you're talking about analytics, for example, you could say analytics and AdWords, how they work together. Or you could just do an AdWords guide, because that's complementary to the content we're talking about. And then you can even make it something like a PowerPoint file or a spreadsheet template, anything that you can have somebody download. And I've done it with all these different things. I've experimented with all kinds of different media, and really you just experiment and then you see how the results are. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. And whatever gets the best results is what you end up doing. Third step, you got to create your guide. And that's where we're going to spend a lot of our time today. So rather than telling you the perfect way to create a guide, I'm just going to tell you what I do. So I use Photoshop for the cover, and we'll go into Photoshop in a little bit here. I use Microsoft Word for the body text. That's probably not the best tool for doing stuff, but I'm just used to it and I'm embedded in it. But you can also use like Docs or Pages or PowerPoint or Numbers, Keynote, whatever tool you're comfortable with to do this. I use Acrobat Pro to do all the PDF stuff, to merge the PDFs and all that. And then I use Lead Pages for the delivery of my lead magnet. We're going to show you all these things in just a second here. Fourth step is that I set up Lead Pages to integrate with my website, and we'll go through that. Fifth step is to measure and test your results. Come up with some ideas as to how do we get improved performance. If your conversion rate's not the 25% that I'm touting from my website, how do you get close to that? How do you get to that point? And the last step is to have a email follow-up sequence, to have some kind of follow-up with this person, so that instead of just giving you their email address to get a guide, you have some kind of way that you can convince them to either purchase your premium content or just to continue to learn with you, whatever your objectives are. So let's do this. Okay, here we are in Google Analytics. You notice this is the report that we were looking at, and this is just the live data from that screenshot. We have a 2-cent page value, not very good here. 8 steps to eliminating Google Analytics. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this page and see what it's all about. See, when it was written, what's there. I have no idea why this page is doing so well, but it's doing really well. But you notice there's no real call to action here. It's really just it's a typical Jeffalytics article where I just talk about the topic and go as in depth as I can. It's a pretty, it's a long article. It fits all the things that people think are good. It's got a lot of thumbs up. So people like this. And for whatever reason, people are liking this enough that Google's ranking it really high in this area, and it's getting thousands of visitors a month. But it's not converting, because I never really expected it to. What's a conversion here? Is it a comment? What is the real reason why, or what's the way that somebody converts for this website? Well, let's look at one that does do well. So this is the article that does really well. This is the monthly reporting template. And you see the call to action is right here. You can download a template. And so why can't I take this concept that I learned here? This gets a 25% conversion rate. So even though there's much fewer visitors each month coming into the website, it's doing better. And it's doing better because of the download call to action here. So how do we get that across the other page? That's really what we're going to talk about here. So this is how I'm basically going through the process of discovering what I should be doing. And then if we go into my lead page, as you see here, this is that screenshot we talked about there. Basically, the monthly report template is getting a 56% conversion rate, doing very well. And every time I wake up in the morning, I'm getting several more people coming in leads through my email system. So what do we do? How do I create this? How do I create the point where this article, which is getting a ton of traffic, people like it, they think it's good, how do I put a little button in there that says get a content upgrade? And when you click on that button, here's what you get. You get a form that says what you're doing in here. So that's what I want to talk about, and that's what we're going to do today. So the first thing is we need to create the downloadable asset. If you don't have a downloadable asset, none of this stuff really matters here. And so I'm going to show you how I created my guide, the guide that I call 7 Steps to Strategic Analytics. So if we go in here, the first thing I'm going to show you is Photoshop. So we're in Photoshop right now, and I have this template called Strategic Analytics Guide Cover. And notice if you've ever downloaded something from Jefflytic before, you might have seen this before, but basically it's a layered Photoshop file. And each one of these layers has different meanings and different things that it does. And see, this isn't the best, this isn't a Photoshop course. I'm not going to show you the best way to handle your Photoshop files, but notice that this is, organized in the things. I can turn stuff on, I can turn stuff off. This is basically a Photoshop file. And then I use this thing for a lot of the different covers that I do. Sometimes I'll put in a picture in there. I've used this thing for many things, but what I do is you can go in here and you can find your text, and I can call it, instead of data-driven success, I can call it free download. So I can call this whatever I want to call it. Obviously, you need to have Photoshop in order for this to work. I would recommend using a tool like Photoshop to handle something like your cover, because you get a lot of control in what's going on. I personally worked with a designer to get this first one going, so he created a layered file for me, and then I've just been changing it ever since. So I had a great designer that I worked with who allowed me to do this. You might be able to go get a design from something like Fiverr or another website, or use 99 Designs or any type of design site in order to create this PDF cover. Whatever you want to do. And then when I'm done here, I file and I save as, and I want to save it as a Photoshop PDF. And then in my Photoshop PDF, I want to get rid of the layers, and you can save it as a copy, but basically you'll get a PDF file that is just that cover. So it's a printable PDF cover. Make sure you have the size that works in a printer. Like I said, this is sort of like a cooking show where I've already done this and I'm just showing you what I did. If you want to learn how to use Photoshop, I'm probably not going to be able to create a video on that because I don't consider myself an expert. I know enough to be dangerous into what's going on there. But what you can do is you can request that somebody create something like this for you as a layered PSD file, and then you can keep on using that over and over again for your different topics. So once I've exported that as a PDF, I tuck that away because that's the cover to my document. And then the next thing I do is I create the document itself. So here we are in good old Microsoft Word. I have Jefflytics, and this is a cover sheet. You could actually make your cover sheet just like this. It's all editable text within Microsoft Word. The reason why I don't do it this way is because I think that it's good, but not quite as flashy as the one that I was looking for in my guide. So I do have a cover sheet in here. So I went through and I created this content. So this is basically, I put it like a little horizontal rule. I type the text. I put a screenshot in there. You put your different branding that you want in there, however you want to brand this thing. And then I've even gone in there and said, answer this question. What are my objectives? And you can even fill in the blanks here as you go through this document. And it's basically a 6-page PDF. And at the end, I have a call to action to sign up for my analytics course, because that's sort of why I'm giving this away for free. So you can, if you are interested in analytics and this document is not enough, you can take my course to round out your knowledge. Obviously, that's why we do this type of stuff. And so I have this document, and then what I do is on a Mac, I just save it I print it as a PDF, and then I save it as a PDF, and then I have a PDF file that has this, and then I have a separate PDF file for my cover. And then I go into Acrobat. Here I am in Acrobat, and what I did was I just went into and this is for Acrobat Pro, so if you don't have Acrobat Pro, you might need to find a different tool to do this. I went into Tools, and I organized pages, and you can just drop in your cover on top of your other document. And then that's basically my PDF. This is the downloadable document that people, if they opt into my website, that they can get. And I know that I went through this really fast, but this is, obviously there's many ways to do this, and I could probably spend my entire life teaching you how to use each of these different programs, but that's not really the objective here. The objective is to show you that it's not that difficult to do, and then just to give you the process that I went through. So it takes me a time to create these things, especially if I want to create several pages of content in here. It can take a couple hours, it can take a couple days to get that done. And then the cover, once I have the cover established, it doesn't really take that much effort, so I can create the cover pretty easily just by modifying what I have in here. And then the PDF, once the PDF's done, we're smooth sailing. And so now that I have my lead magnet, how do I get this to people? How do I get it so that other people can see this thing, that they can get it? First thing I want to do is we're going to go into lead pages now, and I'm going to create a new lead box. So lead box is a feature within lead pages that lets you have a hover over box, and that's what this is right here that we're seeing. This is a lead box. So I click on create a new lead box. Now this is also sort of like a cooking show piece where I've already done a few of these things in advance, but here's basically what a new lead box looks like. You can integrate with, and I'm going to use my tool which is called ActiveCampaign. I highly recommend ActiveCampaign if you don't have an email marketing software. I just love everything that it does. And then I'm going to choose the strategic analytics, which is one of the lists that I've created before this in my notes. I'm not going to integrate with lead notifications or a webinar right now. And then if you hit customize this form, you get to choose. You see here it tells you the form field, so I'm going to choose whether I want to have name and email listed in there, which I do want to have both of those because I address people by their name in the emails that I send out. You can say, do you want to send an email after somebody opts in? This is what's called, this is where we put in our lead magnet or our opt-in bribe. So you say, yes, we want to do that. And then you go in there and you refresh it and you choose which one you want. So notice I've already gone through the effort of uploading my PDF file that we have. So we're just going to choose that. And so here you go. You say, thank you for joining us. You can say whatever you want to in this email. I'm just going to save that for now. Now, if we want to change the image, we can click here, and I've already uploaded this image. We choose the strategic analytics. We can change this text. So if you're not really sure what you want to write here, they do have the split testing. You see there's an A/B split test. We could do as many split tests as we want. Right now, I'm just concentrated on getting this out there and getting this done. Get started here. You can change the message there too. Download the guide, and if you hit OK, so you get all these settings in here. We go in and you get a tracking code. So I've added some tracking code to do event tracking. This is Google Analytics event tracking to show when the lead box pops up. If anybody has any questions, leave me a comment and I can give you the code that I'd use to do that. The thank you page, make sure you choose a thank you page in your site that you can use to track as your goal. I'm going to use the same one that I'm using for the monthly report template just to keep things clean. Give it a name, Strategic Web Analytics. We're going to save this thing. And basically now we have a lead box. So if I go in here, and obviously you're going to want to check each of these things and make sure you fill it out perfectly in your case. I'm going to hit publish, and we can do a few things. We can make it a link like text. We can make a button, and we can choose whatever we want to for a button. If you want to consistently use the color, say that we want to use that red color, we can do that here. And then I just copy this piece right here, this code, and I would put that into my blog and my website. And so I'll do that in just a second here. Or you can make it a pop-up so that after a certain amount of time it pops up, or when they exit, when somebody's leaving or showing that going to their URL browser bar, you can have them exit. Now I like to do the standard click one because I think that it works well in context, in line, but you can use these for other things as well. You can put in whatever text you want to put in there, and then you get this code, and I just take this code and I can put it on my website. You can have this say whatever you want it to, but I would recommend just doing some kind of experiment on your side. You can test these things, you can try whatever you think will work for your site. And so what I've done is I've added this to my website, and so here we are back on the page for the 8 steps to eliminating bad data, and you see here's now the get our free strategic web analytics guide. If I click on that, we have the image in there, the full name and the email, and if you click on download, you're gonna get sent this guide. And so there we go. I've made it so that somebody can opt into the form. There's a few little things that I might tweak here, like making the full name required, but this is the standard way that we can get this to work. It's pretty straightforward how we do this, but that's how we get this on our site. And so this is live on the site now. I'm gonna let it run for about 2 weeks, see how it manages to improve our performance, see how many leads we get, and check in. I hope it works really well, but it might not work well, and we'll just have to see what happens here. And the final step that I'm going to do, that I've done here, is now that it's integrated on my website and I'm collecting leads, is that I have set up an automation in my tool called ActiveCampaign, which is my email tool of choice. And whenever somebody goes through this process, they get an email, and I send them a series of emails introducing the analytics course. And so this analytics course is my newest product, something that I'm very proud of. And I think that anybody who downloads that guide to strategic analytics might be looking for more information about how do they learn analytics, and so I'm giving them information about doing it. And that sequence lasts for about, it's about 80 emails right now, and it lasts for several weeks, and basically just introduces them to the concept of how analytics can work for them. And so I've gone through this process, and this email sequence works really well. People who receive it, a decent percentage of them they're going all the way through and purchasing the course. And so I found that using these lead magnets as a way to get somebody's email address and then continuing to build a relationship has been really effective for me and for operating my online courses and getting people interested in what I have to say. And so this strategy works for me. I'm going to show you how it works using my real data, my real numbers and everything like that. That's sort of scary for me to do that, and also pretty fun to see how it's going to check in. So we will, like I said, we wait a couple weeks to see how much data comes in. But basically now on my live website, you saw me put that in there. You saw that it wasn't there before. So we can measure the event of when that happened. We have our goal set up in Google Analytics so we can get our page value to show up well. We have done everything we can in order to track this the right way. And we showed you how to create a lead magnet and all that stuff. Okay, so let's summarize what we learned today. So the importance of downloadable content. It's not deniable that somebody, if they're willing to give you their email address, you have to give them some really good content. But if it's good content, they're willing to give you their email address. And they're willing to listen to a few more things that you might have to say. What you can expect from a downloadable guide, like obviously what somebody, setting expectations with your user, and then also what you can expect from a result, showing you my real results, 25% conversion rate. I don't think that 8 steps to eliminating data in Google Analytics is going to get 25%, but it might get somewhere around 5%. And if I can get a 5% conversion rate, we're doing something right here. So we'll see how that goes when we do our check-in in a couple of weeks. We talked about how do you brainstorm and create your own guides. If you're short of ideas, we have several ideas for how you can get to this point and you can track your own things. And then we covered where do you put the guide and how do you get it out to your audience using these tools like Lead Pages and Active Campaign. And remember, creating the asset's the hard part. Now, the funny thing that I think about this is that when you think about creating organic search traffic, that's such a focus for everybody is to get organic search traffic. But it turns out that it's like 5 times more complicated to get that search traffic to be effective for you, to get it to do what you want it to do. And that's what this is all about. It's getting you to go to the next level, to the next step, and taking this traffic that we've worked so hard to build and building value for us, building leads, building opportunities, building revenue, because that's something that if we're focused on the wrong thing, which is just purely driving in search traffic, we're not going to get the revenue that we expect. And so I'm changing this now to the point where we're going to get more revenue. And we'll continue to do videos on this topic because that's one of my big focuses as I go through 2016 is traffic was good. Traffic was great, right? To get all the search traffic, I get a lot of people going to my website, but I want to convert more now. And I realize that not everybody's going to convert. And when we talk about percentages, if you have 50% of people viewing your form, 50% of them filling it out, that 25% conversion rate we've been talking about, that's pretty crazy, right? Even if it was 10%, and you got 1,000 people a day to give you their email address, of those people with the email address, only a certain number are going to end up taking the next step you want them to. Only a certain number are even going to open the email. But then eventually you do this enough and you have all these irons in the fire and you're going to have a pretty consistent leads and sales machine. And that's really what we're trying to do here is to create a consistent way to get leads and sales for our business. And so that's a big focus of mine. And I'm walking you through it as I go along and sharing my story and my adventure as I go through it. So that's it for part 2. So we went through developing and deploying your content upgrades and we put it on the website. And so I'm going to go in and check my work after this to make sure I didn't lose anything or miss anything. Obviously, talking and doing work at the same time is not the easiest thing to do. So I'm going to go back and check on everything. And then we will do another video in a couple weeks here where we're going to check in on the results. Is it conclusive? Are we doing well? Am I seeing that page value go up? What's happening as a result of doing this? And is it worth doing it? Is it worth doing it and going through it for all the other content on my site? And if you are watching this video on YouTube or if you're just discovering this video and you aren't on the Jefflytics website, I encourage you to go to jefflytics.com/lead magnet in order to learn more about what we're doing here. Thank you.